Witch in Charm's Way, a cozy mystery audiobook, written and narrated by R.K. Dreaming. Part 44. When we got to the police station, Allegra was waiting there for us at the front desk. She looked immensely relieved to see me and hurried over. She looked at Oberon questioningly. I gave her the tiniest of shrugs to let her know that I still did not know what had happened. I went to the officer at the reception desk and told him that we were here to see Agent Constantine. The officer already knew. He was on the phone already, calling Agent Constantine. 2 uniformed watch wizards hurriedly closed in on us, looking at Oberon slightly nervously as if worried what he would do. They had their wands clenched tightly in their hands. "Chill," I said. "He came in willingly, didn't he?" "You need to come with us," one of them said to him. "I'm coming too," I said firmly. "We have statements to make to Agent Constantine, and since Oberon is cooperating, you can put those wands away." The watch wizards looked at me defiantly. They lowered their wands, but didn't put them away. They did let me and Allegra go with Oberon into the back area of the police station to an interview room. Agent Constantine came in just moments later, letting Lorcan and Petra and Paolo and Jasper into the room ahead of him. When he saw me, he sighed. "I should have known," he muttered under his breath. "You have no idea," I said to him. Jasper gave me a quizzical look. I reached into the large bag that I was carrying and carefully extracted a clear plastic Ziploc bag. Inside was the clawed murder weapon that had Lily's blood on it. I put it onto the table in the middle of the room. Petra looked at it and she gasped. So did Paolo. "What is that?" Paolo said in a panicked voice. "Good question," said Agent Constantine, raising his eyebrows at me. "If I'm not mistaken, we already have one identical to that in evidence." "This is the real one," I told him. "But it's not," snapped Lorcan. "It can't be." "Did you really think I was going to let you all into the same room as the real murder weapon?" I said to him. "I asked Allegra to create an identical copy of it before you even arrived, and we stained it with a tiny bit of Lily's blood so that Oberon wouldn't be able to tell the difference." Petra looked on the verge of tears. "It's not the real one. You're playing a trick. It can't be." "It is the real one," I said. "So you pulled your stunt of falling over, pretend accidentally onto it, and wiping off all the fingerprints for no reason. This one still has the fingerprints on it." Oberon and Agent Constantine both stared at it. Agent Constantine looked furious at our deception. The look on his face told me that he was realizing that everything that Petra and Lorcan and Paolo had just said in their statements to him could no longer be trusted. A look of hope came onto Oberon's face. It lit up my heart. I hoped that what I suspected was true, desperately for his sake. "I'm pretty sure that it won't have your fingerprints on it, Oberon," I said to him. "I think it will have Petra's." Lorcan was still looking at the murder weapon in horror. Now he nodded. "It was Petra," he said quickly. "It was her. She did it. She killed Lily." "Shut up!" Petra shrieked. "It wasn't me. It wasn't." "It wasn't you alone, you mean," I said. "It was all 3 of you. You, Lorcan and Paolo. You did it together." "Why would we do that?" demanded Paolo. I shrugged. "I don't know. You tell me. All I know is that I'm pretty certain that this murder weapon has all 3 of your fingerprints on it, so how are you going to explain that?" My heart was pounding. I knew that they could point at my wand and say that I had planted their prints there. But they didn't. Petra collapsed down onto a chair and buried her face in her hands. She took a deep, shuddering, angry breath, and when she looked up, her face was furious. She was glowering at Lorcan. "You stupid idiot," she snarled. "This is all your fault. You were supposed to get rid of the murder weapon, but you dropped it in the stupid garden with Lily's body." Allegra gasped. Agent Constantine crossed his arms over his chest, looking stony-faced. Jasper looked stunned, and so did Oberon. He had been standing, but now he dropped shakily into a chair opposite Petra. "It was you?" he asked in stunned disbelief. She looked at him almost pleadingly. "What did you expect?" she said, half bitterly, half tearfully. This time the tears were real. "Why?" he said in an agonized voice. "Why?" she shrieked. "For you, you idiot! You knew how I felt about you, but you went with Lily anyway. Even though you knew that she was going with your dad, you still wanted her. It was pathetic." "I loved her," he said. "No, you didn't," she shrieked. "You'd only known her for a few months. You've known me our whole lives, and she didn't care about you." She looked at him like she was begging him to understand. "Lily did care about me," said Oberon, quietly insistent. "Oh, yeah? So how come after you killed that creep Willie for her, to protect her from him, how come she turned on you like that? You were unconscious. He had nearly killed you and you were lying there passed out. And we, your friends," she pointed at Lorcan and Paolo and herself, "we wanted to protect you. So we threw his body into the wet concrete because we knew it would be set by morning. No one would know that he was lying there at the bottom of that pool, and you would be safe. Nobody cared about Willie the Shank. Nobody would care that he'd gone missing." "Shut up, Petra," said her brother urgently. She angrily swiped her tears. "I will not shut up," she shouted. She turned back to Oberon. "We did it for you. We threw his body into the cement to protect you. But she went crazy. She said, 'What are you doing? We've got to go to the police.' She didn't care that it would ruin your life. You killed him in self-defense to protect yourself and to protect her, but she didn't care that you were a vampire and the cops wouldn't believe you. And then she ran off and left you lying there, passed out on the ground. Your precious Lily left you lying there." Oberon looked stunned. He was shaking his head. This seemed to make her angry. "We chased her," she said. "We chased her all the way to protect you. Out of the club, onto Brimstone Bay beach. She nearly got away, but we caught her, and then we all did it together." She dropped her eyes, unable to meet his gaze now. "You made them do it," I said. "That's the thing they never realized about you, Petra, isn't it? You've always had Lorcan and Paolo wrapped around your little finger. You've always been able to make them do what you wanted, haven't you? You wanted Lily dead and gone. But you couldn't kill her alone. You had to make them do it too, so that they would be equally as guilty as you." "So what?" she spat. "We've always been on everything together. Why should I have to kill her alone? Why should all the blame come to me?" "Shut up, Petra," Lorcan begged. "It's too late for that, you idiot," she snapped. "We should never have listened to you," he moaned. "I should never have listened." He buried his face in his hands, full of shame. Petra looked at him in disgust. "You're pathetic." "It's called remorse," I said. She threw me a furious look. "Weak is what he is. I knew he and Paolo would never keep their mouths shut unless they did it to Lily too. Lorcan wouldn't do it with his wand, so I made him fashion that weapon instead. And then I made us all take turns. It was supposed to look like a werewolf did it. Everyone would think that her ex-boyfriend James did it to her. After all, he'd been fighting with her earlier on in the cafe. We all saw it. Even you were a witness." "Then why did you put Lily's body in my garden?" I asked her stonily. She looked at me defiantly, because I realised after we'd done it that we didn't even know where James was. What if he had already left town? What if he had dozens of alibis? Then the police would come and find us. People would have remembered that Lily had gone running through the club and that we'd gone running after her. It would have been obvious that we had done it. And then I remembered that you had been arguing with her too, and you're new in town, and you're such a pathetic loser, stuck up in that castle all alone, and you wouldn't have an alibi. So I said to Lorcan that we should either hop to your garden and just leave her there, and no one would ever know." "And then you realised you had dropped the murder weapon?" I asked. "So you broke into the castle to get it?" "Lorcan did that," she said. "That poltergeist Greedy had a crush on him. She thought she was letting him in for a prank." She glared at a slumped Lorcan and hissed, "This is all his fault. As soon as we realised he'd dropped the weapon, we tried to go back for it. But we heard Dell rummaging in the garden, tidying things up, so we had to run before she spotted the body and us." My mouth twisted in disgust. "And then you went back to Oberon and told him a pack of lies. You made him believe he'd killed someone he loved." Oberon looked stunned with disbelief. "I can't believe you killed her," he whispered. He was staring at Petra like she was a stranger. "Don't you dare look at me like that," she said. "Don't you dare! I did it all for you, you idiot! I did it because I love you!" Oberon stood up and backed away from her. He shook his head. "You did it for you," he said. "You always said that Lily didn't belong in our group. You did it for you." She wept and screamed and raged as officers came to handcuff her and take her away from the room. Lorcan and Paolo didn't say anything as they went. They were hanging their heads in shame. They knew it was all over now. Oberon reached out to take my hand. He still looked grief-stricken, but it was different from how tortured he had looked on the beach. That haunted expression had gone from his eyes. "Thank you," he said. Allegra and Jasper just looked at me. They couldn't believe we had done it, and they had put their trust in me. That meant more to me than anything in the world. "You guys," I mouthed at them silently. "Best cousin in the world, and maybe a best new friend too." Hi, you've reached the end. Comment the code words, "I can't believe it was all for nothing," to confuse everyone who hasn't reached this part of the story yet, and thank you for playing along.